Welcome to another broadcast. I want to thank you for clicking on today's video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification button so you know when the next video drops. And I know that you will enjoy this broadcast today. We're going to talk about money today. And before we get into this video, I have a link that you can order this book. It's called Become Your Own Banker. It's going to be in the description below. And also, From the Trash Man to the Cash Man. This is an absolutely amazing book. So I would suggest go to the description, check out these videos, and you will not be disappointed. So we have a special guest today, Andy Lahman, and you are an entrepreneur, you are a businessman, and a financial advisor. So I'm glad that you're here today because I know that the world is struggling in the world of economics. And so we're going to have an awesome conversation today on that. So
awesome. Looking forward to it, Jacob. Thanks for the invite, man.
So my name's Jacob, and this is Ignite Fire. Andy, so thank you for coming on the pod. I'm excited to hear what you have to say today, and I know the audience will benefit from the information. We definitely need a turn in the tide when it comes to the economic insecurity of the world. So share a little bit about your background and who you are and what you do.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks again for the invite to be here.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. By the way, I just want to comment on how well done this facility is. I mean, how well you've done at putting it together. It's amazing. Impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, really impressive. I know that viewers can appreciate what they see, right? And that's a big deal. So yeah, my background is I studied business in college, mainly because I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life.
Okay.
And I knew, the rest of my family were in education.
Oh, okay,
and I
really?
Knew that, and I knew that I didn't really want to be a teacher.
Yeah.
I knew that I wanted to do something different. And I figured business was my best option because it would be the most broad, the most options. My grandpa, who was a farmer growing up, he was kind of my inspiration for business because he was a businessman. Also, my other grandpa was a businessman as well. So anyway, all that to say, chose business. And then it was my senior year in college where I remember a professor said, "Hey, today is going to be the most valuable lesson I'm going to teach you all semester." And I was like, "All right, I'm curious to hear, like, what are you going to share if this is the most important lesson?" He said, "When you go to get your first job, make sure you max out your 401k.
Oh.
And I was like, "All right, I have no idea what a 401k is, but sounds good. I'll figure it out." So I went and got my, out of college, I went to Barnes & Noble up on Bell Road there in Peoria.
Yeah.
And I said, "Hey, what am I going to learn? What am I going to figure out here?" And so I bought a book called The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach, and learned a little bit about what a 401k was. Turned out my dad was in the business, in financial services business, but he was helping mostly teachers at the time do 403Bs, which are very similar to 401ks, but they're mostly geared for teachers, occasional people in healthcare, and also pastors.
Yeah, Jess has a
403B.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I was like, all right, well, I know about a 403B, but not so much a 401k. And so learned about a 401k. And then as soon as I started working, I started investing. And I taught 2003 until 2006, I worked in the financial aid industry.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
For a little while. And then actually it was about the summer of 2006 that my brother came to me and said, "Hey, buddy, what do you think about teaching?" And I was like, "All right, well, we came from a family of teachers, but I'm not sure that I want to teach, But I said, listen, I was just the right time in the industry, in the financial services industry or financial aid industry. Things were starting to kind of change directions. And so I was like, hey, I'll go in for an interview. And if they hire us both, then I'm in, If they hire me and they don't hire you, then I'm out, But they hired us both. And so he and I ended up teaching. I taught for 8 years. And then if you fast forward to 2013, that's when Young Living, our Young Living business started to kind of take off a bit. And so, Young Living is, my wife, your wife are connected with Young Living. And I encourage my wife to take a leap of faith.
So how'd you guys get involved with Young Living and all that?
Good question. So my mom put oils in our stockings in 2006.
Okay.
Yeah, at Christmas. We still did stockings back then. Well, we still do stockings even now. But and so we just started using them. I mean, within a year, basically. My wife was getting sick pretty regularly, and my mom's like, "Hey, recommend you use some thieves oil." So Andrea started using thieves oil, and would wake up feeling better. She was having to take a day off prior to that, and wasn't having to after that. So anyway, Young Living. Then from 2007 to 2012, basically, my mom, sister, and Andrea all taught occasional Young Living classes. But it was kind of before Young Living made a big deal about the fact that there was income, an opportunity for income.
Okay.
It's mostly just product up until that point.
Yeah.
And so 2012, the 4-year career book was released. And that was the book that kind of changed things for us as far as business was concerned. Because before we just didn't understand network marketing very well. And that book really put it into perspective. And the question really is like, do you enjoy the product? Would you use that product regardless of whether or not you got compensated for recommending it to other people?
Yeah.
And if you say yes, then, a business might make sense. And so it made sense for us. And so, from 2012 basically until till current day, still building a Young Living business, and I love it. It's been obviously a kind of a challenging last couple years.
Yeah.
Business wise, there's just been a change in, economic change, right? But the demand or the need, I think, in my opinion, for health and wellness is a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, we live in a culture that's not super well. If you think about it. So, there's always opportunity there. So that's Young Living a little bit.
Yeah.
And then financial services. My dad, I kind of started working part-time with my dad in 2009. And
what did your dad do?
So he's been doing financial services. He and my mom were teachers up until 2009. But he started part-time in financial services back in the mid 90s. And then, he became more full-time once he left teaching.
Yeah.
So 2009, I joined him part-time, just basically at that point, just doing term life insurance, and just jumped in. And then 2014, I made the jump out of teaching because Young Living had picked up enough. And I was like, hey, if I'm telling my wife to go and, follow her dreams, so to speak, take a leap of faith, and I need to do the same when it came to financial services.
Yeah.
Then I just jumped in, more head first. And I'm not going to tell you it was easy.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy. That first 6 months was terrifying, really. Like, just a lot of self-doubt. I'm in my mid 30s and we've got an income that was better than I really anticipated. And, and I also kind of lost my community when I left teaching,
Oh yeah.
Because you're used to being in the trenches with teachers. And now it's like, all right, I don't really have the same group of people there,
Yeah.
So Young Living, actually a lot of Young Living became my family.
Oh, okay.
After that. So I'm thankful, super thankful for Young Living because it became my family, so to speak. So, yeah.
So would you say, cause you're a Christian, right? Would you say that had a greater impact on those times of unknowing, stepping out into the dark? Did that have an effect on how you proceeded with things?
Oh, for sure. I won't forget, there was a time during that 6-month period where I was kind of in doubt, where I said, well, I remember going to the closet, getting on my hands and knees and saying, God, I'm scared. I don't really know what I'm doing, to be honest, And I remember feeling, I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you.
Yeah.
And that was a super comforting moment. And really from there, I'm not saying that I don't have moments of fear from time to time, right? I think we all do. It's human, but just a lot more peace as a result of that time, where it's just like, all right, I'm okay. I'm all right. Gonna be just fine.
I think that's something that we've been talking about, wanting to gear more ideas towards is, when we look at society, we look at how things are, there's a lack of spirituality. There's lack of God. Well, no, I shouldn't say there's a lack of spirituality. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening in the world when it comes to religion and spirituality, so to speak, and new age stuff, and kind of getting people off of the track. But there's a lot of things coming against the nuclear family, the father, the mother, and the children, and the hierarchy. And I was talking to, there we had another guest on, we were doing some fun stuff on the pod. And I was talking about the hierarchy from the biblical worldview is, Christ in man, man over woman, woman over children. And when you don't have that dynamic, it destroys society. There's no structure in the home, and the children suffer so bad, and then the next generation suffers. And we talked about beta men and all this stuff where men are being led by feelings. And I think that having that structure, that faith in Christ and God, really gives the confidence that a man needs, even though he faces fear and the unknown and all of these other aspects that come against us. When we have that foundation of faith, it's almost like we can stand up and say, okay, I'm not alone. I can do this.
Yep.
I'll go out and God's with me.
Yep.
And it makes a huge difference.
Totally. Yeah. It's a peace, right? That you experience, an internal peace where it's like, all right, yeah, I'm not alone. If I don't know what to do, God knows what to do, right? And if I follow God's word, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because God has promises for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said, he won't leave me. He won't forsake me.
Yeah.
Right? And there are other promises that I hold on to regularly where it's just like, hey, I know you're going to be my provider. I know that you will always take care of me. So,
that's that there's a scripture that talks about men not taking care of their families, right? That if you don't work, you're worse than an infidel. Mm-hmm. And there was a moment where I was struggling financially, and I'm like, man. And then all of a sudden, I read that scripture, and I was like, oh man, that's like a kick in the in the tail, right?
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden, I believe I got a revelation that the Lord was like, I'm your father, and I'll take care of you.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, dang.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, that'll work.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lord.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, the Bible, it is just, I'll be honest with you. My background was, I grew up in a great church, but the Bible was actually scary to me.
Really?
Like I was scared of the Bible. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that, so my dad he represented the college that I ended up going to, and he would go to different churches and talk to them about, it was church relations was his title basically.
Okay.
And so we'd go travel to different churches. And I remember going into these, Sunday schools, and they'd be talking about books from the Bible or, stories of the Bible. And I couldn't remember the stories. So I'd get asked questions and I'd just be like, oh shoot, I don't know the answer. Like I was literally scared of the Bible because I didn't know stuff. And now I'll be honest with you. One of my weaknesses is that it's not that my memory is not pretty sharp, but like I don't remember certain details. Like when I read, reading's not my biggest gift, especially books I don't appreciate. When I love the material I'm reading, then I'll remember it all, right? But I remember growing up in school where it's like I'm reading books I could really care less about, right? And so my reading comprehension was terrible. And so for me, like that's kind of what the Bible is for me. It's like my reading comprehension of the Bible was not great. And then again, it's because the church I grew up in, it wasn't super word based. I mean, it was, it's Bible based, but just, we weren't digging in for the words. Like, what can I learn here? So for me now in my faith walk is like, what can I learn here? Right?
Yeah. I
mean, faithful with reading, faithful with reading scripture daily, where it's like, all right, what can I learn here? How can I grow? How can I have some sort of an insight or revelation that's going to lead me to something greater?
Yeah. So, okay. So you went to college, you went to business, you started learning business, started teaching, right? And all of a sudden, wife gets into young living and starts doing the entrepreneur stuff. And then you got into the financial field, and things were rocky in the beginning, right? So when did you notice things started to change financially? And what were you doing from the beginning until that point with your dollars? Because with the economy the way it is, inflation's going crazy. The dollar's losing value. So what were you doing in those times that you were protecting the value of the dollar?
Yeah, great question. So I'll flash back to let's just flash back to 2005 when we got married. Is it okay to go that far back?
Yeah.
Or you want
Let's do
times?
it.
Okay. So 2005, my wife and I, when we first got married, we bought a house, starter home, and had a mortgage on that. A couple years later, then we upgraded in house. So that was 2007 then, and the housing market had a bit of a dip there, right? From 2009 on, for quite a while. And we felt that. We were upside down on our house for about 5 years. Yeah, and for those people that are watching that don't know what it means to be upside down, it just means that you are, the value of your home is less than what you owe on it. And so that, for me, that kind of stung. It was like, all right, this just doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, I was extra motivated to get hungry about paying off the mortgage. So we paid the mortgage off in 2018. And man, I will tell you, there's not a feeling in the world of like being completely debt free.
Yeah.
Like, I can't really explain it. You know, other than you feel really light. And it's like you've been carrying around a 30, 40 pound backpack that you didn't realize you were carrying around until you take it off. And then you're like, oh my gosh, this is what it feels like to not carry this debt around.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a kind of a big moment where it's like, oh yeah, this is awesome. Now I wish I could tell you that it was all fun and games after that. And it really was like from 2018 until 2020, life was pretty incredible. Cause it's like, all right, solid income, no debt, no mortgage. When you don't have a mortgage, then that's, that was $1,100, $1,200 a month that we don't have to pay anymore.
Yeah.
So now it's extra money where it's like, all right, we can save that, invest it. We actually did some upgrades on our house at that point. But just a lot of cool things we could do. And then 2020, obviously we all know what happened in 2020, shifted the world a bit.
Oh yeah.
And that shifted my wife
from the children of the lie.
Oh my. Yeah. We could spend a lot of time there, and I'm sure you have, right? I'm sure you have spent a lot of time on podcasts about.
We actually haven't. So no, okay. but that'll be a good topic to get into.
Yeah. I mean, so 2020, it really it shook people, right?
Oh yeah.
It shook my wife. And I'm not saying I wasn't shaken by it, but it's kind of like, all right, I see what's going on, but I have a different opinion about things.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, okay, I'm in the health and wellness world, and I believe my immune system is strong enough to take care of itself.
Yeah.
And, the people that I follow, the people I listen to are different, right? Like I listen to professional athletes regularly. Like those are the people that I might not have friends that I'm, one-on-one close with that are professional athletes, but I'm constantly listening to them.
Yeah.
And, paying attention to what they're doing. And very few of them are concerned or worried about the virus. Right?
Yeah.
And I have a lot of people that were concerned about the virus. I have friends that lost friends because of the virus. So I don't want to downplay that there wasn't stuff to be concerned about, but I just handle things differently because I listen to different things. Right.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, my wife was definitely affected in it from the standpoint of, which I'm sure you heard of the idea. And, it was around, which is, hey, they're taking away our freedoms.
Oh yeah.
Right. So we need to do this or that, And so, she was definitely involved in media, which it was hard not to be, right?
Yeah,
media was kind of like, right in front of our faces. Unless you chose intentionally to not listen to media, you were going to hear media,
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, hey, she really wanted to, I was trying to get her out of the media world. So yeah. So I was like, hey, let's go do some looking at some model homes or something.
Yeah.
And we weren't in a place where we were ready to buy a home. We were actually saving money to buy our first rental property.
Oh, okay.
And we were going to buy that property with cash, and then we were going to rent it out.
Yeah.
But we started looking at model homes. The next thing you know, she's like, I want to buy a house. I was like, all right, well, that's not what I want to do, but clearly that's what you want to do, And she kept saying, hey, land is going away. Land is going away. And Andrea, my wife, she's heard all this. So it's not like, talking about anything we haven't talked about. But for me, I'm like, all right, land is not going away. Land will always be there, but can you afford the land?
Yeah.
And is it important? Like, is it valuable to you? And it was valuable to her, And this is, we've had a couple, we had a couple years of pretty difficult times in our marriage. Like, honestly, these last 3 years have been the most challenging in our marriage. But,
yeah.
But I believe it'll make us stronger. It's not like we ever once were like, yeah, we can't do this as a couple. We definitely had moments where we just had to, talk it out.
Oh yeah.
Yell it out. Listen to each other, whatever it is, right?
Jess and I were going to counseling for like almost a year, marriage counseling.
Yeah. It's been a challenging time period for marriage, right? Just in general, I had 3 cousins that all got divorced in 2020. So we're just talking. I don't think there were a lot of people that weren't affected, right?
Yeah.
When you have an economic change, you've got a worldly change. Just things change. She ended up getting to the point where she's like, all right. She started driving for land. Like she was literally driving up and down out in Waddell where we live. And she found a spot. And I couldn't tell her no.
Yeah.
Like she was just so dead set on it. She talked the woman into agreeing that they were good to sell the land to us. And so, whoo, buddy. That's
when the process started.
That's when the process started. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I just had this feeling of like, I think I know we're in over our heads here.
Yeah.
And bless our buddy Jody Marble, because Jody helped us build our house, and he and his boys, and they did an amazing job. But I feel bad for him because he had to go through some of the marriage
Yeah.
challenges that we were dealing with, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I could start to see a little bit of decline in our business,
Uh-huh.
right? She didn't want to hear about the decline in our business, but it's like, well, we kind of need to know about these things so that we make good decisions with this home build, you know?
Yeah.
Building a home is apparently one of the most stressful things on a marriage.
Oh, yeah.
And I can attest to that, you know? But all in all, yeah, it got done. We finished it last December. We took money out of retirement, which as an advisor,
Yeah.
I don't recommend at all.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not good. It's you get penalized.
Yeah.
You pay taxes, you know?
Yeah.
And then obviously you have less money for retirement, right? And now I can't complain a lot. I don't know who will watch this video, but you know, I need you to know I'm super grateful.
Yeah.
Those of you guys that are watching that, like, I'm grateful for what we have.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot more than the average person has. And I know that. And it's happened because of diligence. It's not happened because by chance. It's happened by diligence. Because you don't accidentally wake up and decide to pay off your house, right?
Yeah.
Like that's an intentional decision. You don't accidentally decide to wake up and go to the gym. That's an intentional decision, right? Like there are certain things that give you benefits because you did the work to deserve the result, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we have a mortgage on our house. It's not huge. It's very small. A lot of people would say, cry me a river, Andy. You know, cry me a river. Like, come on, man. This is ridiculous.
That's something that I need to work on my mindset because I've always used debt and I've never had the experience of not having debt, you know?
Yeah.
Because when I started my business, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to spend my money. So I just went in and got a loan, you know what I mean? And then my business was producing the income that was paying for the loan. But I do know the scary aspect of that is if the business doesn't produce income, then the loan doesn't get paid, you know? And then that's like kind of like the trade-off, I guess, on the loan versus not having a loan or not having debt. So I've always had that little bit of weight on my shoulders of like, oh man, you know, I don't like this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, I have cash in my account. I'm like, dang, I don't want to touch that.
Yeah.
You know?
I hear you. Well, and that's the thing I need to say. Like, from a financial standpoint, there are an infinite number of things we can do with our money, right? I mean, there are only 3 things we can really do. It's give it, save it, and spend it. Right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to those 3 things, you can go in an infinite number of directions with those 3 things, right? Like, what can you give to? You can give to this, and this, right? How can you save or invest? You can go in lots of different directions, right?
Yeah.
And how can you spend? Same, right?
Yeah.
So like at the end of the day, those choices are a little bit ridiculous, right? Where it's like it's overwhelming. Like
there's too much.
Yeah, there's too much. Like
things.
what can I do? And I would just say for me personally, and it's just the spirit part for me. I had this desire when I was younger to like pay off a house. Like, I don't know what that was about. It's just like, hey, it'd be super sweet to pay off a house.
Yeah.
And we did debt, you know, we had, we had a mortgage and we had a student loan to my wife's and
yeah,
you know,
those are crappy debts.
Yeah. And we had a home equity line. Like we had different things, you know?
Yeah.
But all I can say is after paying it all off and experiencing that versus the feeling I have now, which is not, it's my situation's improving because we're taking steps to like kind of rebuild and get ourselves back on a solid ground.
Yeah.
We took all of our, what I would call emergency fund money. My buddy Scott Strong likes to call it the abundance account.
Yeah.
Emergency fund / abundance account. Because if you call it an emergency fund, then you're going to have an emergency.
Yeah.
Call it an abundance account, you'll have abundance.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
I like that. Changing the words.
I like what he's working on there. But yeah, so we're rebuilding that right now because we used all that for the house.
Yeah.
So to rebuild that helps me to feel a little more calm.
Yeah.
A little more at peace, you know? And again, my goal is not to judge people for the decisions they make monetarily speaking, right?
Yeah.
Because again, there are infinite number of options, but I can just speak for myself and what I feel, right?
Yeah.
And what I feel is like, I mean, it's like my health. I feel better when I go out for a run, right?
Yeah.
It might not be the most exciting thing to think about doing, but like when I get back from it and the rest of the day, I usually feel pretty good.
Yeah.
So that's why I keep doing it, you know? So,
yes.
Anyway.
No, and that's something that gave us the opportunity to look for some new ideas for, because we bought land, you know, and we wanted to build a house. We got the blueprints and everything set, but everything that we saved, they want for the down payment, and I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, then we would be cash, poor pretty much.
Yep.
And so I'm like, there has to be a way out of this. So we don't have to, pull all this cash. And then that's when we discovered the plug for Become Your Own Bank, is these life insurance policies where so if we were going to spend, $100,000 and put it for the down payment, instead of putting that down payment and putting all of our cash in there, we put it in to the life insurance policy, and within the first 30 days we can borrow against it, use that for the down payment, still have our money sitting there growing at 6% interest, and then just pay ourselves back, which is pretty cool, because then I'm like, oh, we didn't lose it. It's sitting there. We just borrowed against it, And I'm like, that sounds a lot better to me versus all of a sudden our account's completely empty and there's nothing there, So we're in that same boat of trying to figure it out, and get creative with it. And it seems like too with society and the interest rates and everything, it's like everything's gone up. Like our house before COVID, everything was going to be $350,000 to build. Now it's like $500,000. And I'm like, what the heck?
Yep.
And we were just talking to the builder the other day, and I'm like, man, it jumped up so much. And then I don't know if you guys dealt with this, but I had no idea what acquisition costs were. Did you know what that?
I don't even know what that means. Tell me.
I planned this whole thing out with Jess, and I'm like, okay, we can do it. We're going to use the equity in the land. We're going to have our down payment. We're going to put all this down, and our loan's going to be low, relatively low, down back to that 350 mark. And we're like, oh yeah, that's great. And then we called the loan guy, and he's like, no, he goes, we have to take the full value of your land, add it to your loan, and then minus the equity of your land from the full amount of your loan. So it's basically like a wash. And I'm like, I'm like, what the heck? So then now we're back at the drawing boards. Like, okay, what do we do now?
Yeah.
But it can be I know you talked a little bit about it. It can be trying to know that there's so many roadblocks, and you're like, okay, now we got to overcome this one, and then now there's 5 more that we got.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you experienced this, but when I see my wife and we're all excited, we're like, yeah, we got over the roadblock. And then there's 3 more. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
And then I look at her, and she's just all, she's feeling discouraged.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, look, let's just keep going.
Yep.
Let's just keep going.
Yep. No, totally, man. I mean, that's life. I think one of the best things that I do my best to teach people, as far as economics are concerned, is that we can't forget that things go up and things come down.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes we think things just go up all the time, but that's not how it works. It's not how it works. It's it goes up and it comes down. I mean, when I teach people about investing, it's like, all right, guys, it's not a question of whether or not the market's going to go down. It's a question of when is it going to go down, and that we don't know. So it's kind of like, all right, when we talk about emergency, right?
Yeah.
Or abundance, we just anticipate that something's coming.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you anticipate, then you might make different decisions, because you're like, all right, I know that something's coming. I don't know what it's going to be, but I know something's going to come. So I need to be maybe a little more conservative in this area to just plan so that I've got things set up to
be prepared.
Yeah, be prepared to succeed in that moment, right? So that's one thing. And the other thing is businesses go up and businesses go down.
Yeah.
And we didn't experience that. So 2012, when we started in business, until 2018 was an up. I mean, we're just going up.
Yeah.
2018, we had a little bit of a downturn. 2019 was up a bit, and then 2020 was our second best year in business.
Oh, okay.
And then, then the last
and then
2 years, and then 2021 and 2022, and even into 2023 now have been on the decline. So, again, but stay in the course, right? It's like, yes, discouragement, but then you have a moment where you're like, all right, I'm encouraged. And I start to see a little bit of shifting and changing. Like even in the health world right now, I see people coming out of, just like admitting, hey, I've been drinking for the last 2 years, and I'm done, Make people making those commitments. Or I've been sitting on the couch and I'm getting off the couch and I'm going to start moving my body.
Yeah.
I've been seeing some of that happening here lately.
Yeah.
And that's an encouraging sign for our business, because it's like, all right, we teach people to get off the couch.
Yeah.
We teach people not to drink, right?
Yeah.
Or drink very minimally, right? Like, don't drink a whole lot. So all that to say, tides change, tides go out, tides come in, and you just have to be able to weather the storm, so to speak, right?
So what would you say would be a good place to start? Somebody's at zero, say they're in their 20s or 30s, and they have not thought about the future, haven't thought about any of that, and it should be a thought. It should be, we should be planning for it. What would you say to that person? Where to start? What to do?
Yeah. So I'm a huge fan of Dave Ramsey, and I know, that's a good name and a bad name for a lot of people, right? Some people are like, yeah, rock on. I love that philosophy.
Yeah,
Others like, not so much. But, for me, again, reading David Bach, the Automatic Millionaire right out of college, was like, all right, some of the things he's working on is, get a house, because homeowners end up being like 30 times better off than renters.
Yeah.
And I'm sure those numbers are not completely accurate these days, but it's equity, right? You're building equity. You're building something for yourself. You're building something that you will eventually own. And when you own it, then you don't have a mortgage payment, right?
Yeah.
If you're a renter, then unless something changes, you're always going to have a rent payment. You pay off that house, then you no longer have a rent payment, so to speak. So just talking about that, but the Ramsey plan for me was kind of like, all right, this makes sense. It's kind of a progression, right? You're progressing, you're working your way into something that's better than where you started. And so his idea is, $1,000 in that emergency fund or abundance account. Pay off your consumer debt, as quickly as you can. And then move on to a 3 to 6 months of your living expenses into an abundance account. And then step 4 is to start putting money away towards retirement. Yeah. And then paying, saving for college, if that's, if that applies to the family. Pay off the house. Yeah. Well, technically buy the house, because most people in their 20s have not bought their house yet, right? Yeah. So that'd be step 3B is what he calls it. Step 3B is where you save money for the down payment to be able to buy that house. Yeah. And then eventually get down to step 6, which is to pay off the house. And then step 7 is to build wealth and give. And you give all along. Yeah. You just give more in that when step 7. Yeah. No, absolutely. So in the 20s, it depends on people's priorities. I had a college buddy that still hasn't purchased a home. He's in his 40s just like I am. And he's just been renting for 20 years. And that's fine for him. I don't know that he has a desire to own. Some people don't have a desire to own. So I think that's the part where I would ask the 20-year-old, hey, what are your ultimate goals? Because some 20-year-olds have zero interest in owning a home, right? Yeah. It doesn't sound attractive to them. So if renting brings more joy, then rent, For him, it gave him more flexibility. He could move around. Yeah. He lives in Austin, Texas, and he could move around, and he lived in like 10 different places in the first 12 years, So anyway, that's kind of what I recommend. Listen to that 20-year-old, ask him what is actually important to them. Yeah. Because ownership may not be important. I think that's a big key is what's important to the person. Totally. And then giving a perspective too, like, so what are you going to do when you're 40, when you're 50, right, when you're 60? Totally. And what are you going to have there, as your for your later years versus right now? Because if we live for just right now, right, we don't tend to see what's going to go beyond the next 20 years. Yeah. And so I think that's huge. Yeah. That's huge. Yeah. No, and I think to your point, to get a 20-year-old thinking about, what's 30 going to look like? What's 40? Because some people can't see beyond tomorrow or beyond today. They might see to the weekend, but they don't look out really any further, right? So just challenging them on that a little bit to say, hey, is a legacy something you want to leave for your family, right? Like, it's a question to ask. Absolutely. Yeah, man. Going back to the marriage conversation is, have conversations with your spouse regularly about your finances. Oh, that's good. And that one's not easy, right? It's not easy. So one of the things that Ramsey teaches is that one person in a marriage is usually the nerd, and one is usually the free spirit. Okay, and so if you're the nerd, Jess is the nerd. She's the nerd, and you're the free spirit, right? And that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with her. No. It's just who you are, right? And so you find a way to communicate about your desires and your needs, right? Yeah. So hey, you should have the freedom to spend some money. Yeah. She should have the freedom to tell you she needs a little bit of understand about where things are going for her sanity, right? Yeah. And then as the free spirit, your job is just to show up to the conversation, right? Even though you don't want to, it's just to show up to the conversation. She wants to have that conversation. It's like I heard a podcast here recently, and the guy was saying, hey, my marriage isn't going very well. Yeah. And the guy's like, well, what does she need? Well, she wants me to go to church with her. Well, go to church with her,
Yeah.
like go to church with her. That's what she wants. Right. So for you, in your case, show up to that meeting, show up to the time when she wants to sit down, or if she doesn't set it up, say, hey, how often do you want to meet? And show up to that.
Yeah.
And then just input something, like, hey, this is what I want to spend money on.
Yeah.
This feels important to me, and then she gets a chance to tell you what's important to her.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big one, is just to have those conversations, because I've heard it, and I could be wrong. Maybe it's not really truly the reason why couples struggle, but a lot of times it has to do with money and time.
Yeah. Yeah.
How are you spending your money? How are you spending your time?
Yeah.
And if you just look at those two things and you say, okay, well, this is how I want to spend my money. This is how I want to spend my money.
Yeah.
These are the things that are important to me,
I think I would add an extra aspect that men aren't being men anymore. And because if a man is leading, he's leading with a vision. He's leading in love, and he's picking up the skills necessary to communicate with his wife.
Yeah.
I remember I was sitting down with a counselor, and I've shared this on many podcasts, but he kept looking at me. And I'm like, we're here because of her. You know what I mean? And he just kept looking at me. And he said, she is the way she is because you are the way you are.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, it was like a slap in the face,
Yeah.
But it was true. And one of the key things I learned in communication, and we use it for our finances, for family, whatever, is you don't have to agree with your spouse. This was freeing for me. You don't have to agree with them.
Right.
You just have to hear them.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, dang, really? And I was like, this is bull. Man. Like, no way.
Man.
What the?
Yeah.
And so he ends up giving, I thought it was the most stupidest thing ever. He gives me this little communication sheet.
Yeah.
One for me, one for her. And we're arguing about, I can't even remember. We've had so many arguments. We're arguing. And she's like, I think we need the sheets. And I go, that's dumb. I was like, we don't. And then we kept arguing. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. I get the sheet, and it gives you person A, person B, and who's going to start off. So I get the sheet, and so she's going to start first. So she communicates what she wants. The directions on the sheet are: you do not respond, you do not say anything, you repeat back what they just said, and the key part was you don't have to agree, but you don't voice that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I listened to her, I repeated back what she said, and then the next part is you ask them, do you feel understood? And they either say yes or no. If they say no, you go back through the process until they feel understood.
Wow, that's good.
And then once they finally do feel understood, then you become the person that gets to speak, and then they have to follow the other part, and they listen until you're understood. And it has nothing to do with getting the decision made, and it's just listening to each other. And all of a sudden, once we started doing that, our defenses came down.
Yep.
Once we were finally heard, and then we could rationally make a decision together.
Yep.
It's pretty wild.
Oh, man.
It's pretty wild.
Oh, man. That's such a big deal right there that you're talking about, because listening, like, I think you, me, Jess, Andrea, I think we all think we're pretty good listeners, right? But when it comes down to it, it's like, are we really?
No.
I know I've got some problems. Like, it's like, Andy, listen to your wife. Like,
do you ever cut her off?
Oh, yes. And when she's saying land is going away, it's like, okay, even though I know in my heart land is not going away, like, land will always be available, because you could tear a house down, right?
Yeah.
And then land is available. So
Yeah.
I know that's not real,
Yeah.
right? But it's how she feels.
Yeah.
Right? She feels stuck. She feels stuck in the house, right?
So women may not like this, but they are emotional.
Yeah.
And men are more technical.
Yep. Yep.
And we talked
Yeah.
So I had made some joke. Guys, I joke about this stuff. I think it's funny. But I was talking about being raised by your mama. You know what I mean? Like, and in single home households where there is no male present, where the woman will create her children in her image, and disrespect the father because he's no longer in the home, and it creates a beta male, because when they grow up, they're led by their emotions versus their ability to process what's really happening. You know what I mean? And then they become more emotional.
Yeah.
And you can't base decisions on emotional feelings. You have to remove the emotions.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's a positive thing for a male and a female when they come together to become one,
Yep.
because they have to balance each other out.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just
totally. Yeah, man. I mean, that's the thing for me. It's like, all right, again, at no point was divorce ever a conversation for us, right? It's like, no, we're married. Our marriage is more important than anything else, right?
Yeah.
So if this house feels really important to her, I need to hear her.
Yeah.
Clearly, maybe I wasn't listening well in the past, and I missed all that led us up to this point. Or 2020 was enough of an emotional deal that it did affect her to decide that she wanted this land, right? And regardless, if it's that important to her, she's my wife. I'm going to do everything I can to help do what it is that she wants to do. Right?
Yeah.
And if I'm going to truly listen. Now, does it make me uncomfortable? Yes. Does it cause me to do a lot of things I'd never tell people to do? Yes. I did things I wouldn't tell people to do.
Yeah.
But it was at the cost of my marriage, right?
Yeah.
I chose my marriage over looking pretty on paper, because that's what it really was. That was my ego saying, hey, I need to look pretty on paper because this is what I do. This is what I teach people. But in all reality, like, my marriage is more important than than how good I look on business and all this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm chasing her. I'm not chasing this. I'm chasing her.
Yeah.
So I'm going to listen to the best of my ability, even if it sucks, even if I'm uncomfortable, right? I'm just going to do my best. So yeah. And listening is not easy. It's not easy.
No. And sometimes women are right. You know?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, totally. And we need our wives. Yeah, man, we'd be messed up if we didn't have our wives.
Oh, yeah.
Totally messed up. And it is a balance thing. And it is, my voice is not more important than her voice.
Yeah.
Without her voice, I'm nothing.
Yeah.
She was created for me. I was created for her. Like, it's how God created it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to listen. I'm going to do my best anyway, right? I'm going to show up. If she wants me to take the lead in an area, I'm going to take the lead. If she has a gift in an area, I'm going to let her take the lead, like that sort of thing.
And guys, like I said, I make a lot of jokes towards men and women and the roles that we play. But I do believe that our wives do see things that sometimes we don't see.
Yep.
And they hear things that sometimes we don't hear.
Correct.
And we need someone to share those things with us and say, hey, I'm seeing this, or I noticed this. And it's like, oh, dang, really? And because I know I can be oblivious to a lot of things. And I can be sometimes so single-minded that the whole world could be on fire, and I'm still looking at this one thing like, that stuff doesn't matter. Yeah. I'm focused right here.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you. I mean, that's me in 2020, where it's like, I know what's going on. I'm just not choosing to listen to it.
Yeah.
And that's the single focus, where it's like, okay, Andy, you might be doing that to a point where you're actually causing problems in your relationship because you're not listening to your wife. She just wants you to listen to her for just a little while. I don't really want to hear it because it irritates me, right?
Yeah.
And then it causes me to not be on my A game. But if my wife needs listening, I should probably do my best to show up, right?
Yeah. I know in 2020, that was an interesting time when all the churches shut down. That's when I got some speakers and I went to the park and I'm like, we're not shutting down. I'm like, we're gonna still gather together.
Yeah.
And I remember I got a lot of resistance for that. But one thing that was kind of cool is Jess was there saying, okay, she's like, if you really believe this, I'm gonna stand behind you. Yeah. And I think that can make a huge difference too, making sure your spouse, you guys are on the same page. Because like I said, like the whole world could be on fire, but as long as you guys are standing as one, oh man, watch out.
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, sickness and in health, right, man? I mean, it's not always going to be in health.
The good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah. Rich or poor, it's not always going to be rich, So like, it's just, what are you going to do to really be there? What are you going to do to actually hold true to your covenant that you agreed to, right? Like, I'm showing up. So I want to say well done to you guys for doing counseling to get extra help, right? Like we did not get counseling, but we were always open to it. Yeah. Always open to it. It was like, okay, if we can't figure this out on our own, then we're gonna do that. Like that's super important to us. So I think when we don't think that through, that's ego, right? That's our ego getting in the way, where it's like, okay, hey, if we truly believe that God is leading us, then we need to listen. We need to listen. We need to go and do the work. Yeah. So,
I think I was pretty prideful, and it took a counselor, telling me what I needed to hear to make it work. And it's funny. we were at I was talking to another brother about this. We were at a men's retreat, and I had brought up some of the stuff that was told to me, and I shared it with another guy. He blew up. Because the things that were told to me were pretty intense, you know. Yeah. And I realized that, but our pride can be a blinder
totally
to a lot of the stuff. And unless somebody's willing to say, hey, I'm going to be your friend,
yep.
and I'm going to tell you the truth, whether you like it or not.
Yep.
And if you don't want to hear it, you can keep, living the way that you're living. I don't
yep.
have to tell you anything, but if you want it,
yeah,
I'm going to tell you the hard truth,
yeah. Yeah.
I think that's needed in our finances, in marriage, in leadership, in all those aspects. We need the truth,
yep,
because the truth will set us free.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And it's a big deal. I just want to say that to people it's a big deal to find other people that are around you that are going to make you better, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're going to call you out. They're going to say, hey, dude, yeah, get out of your way. Like you're causing part of the problem, And so for me, like, I definitely had enough people in my life to say, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Like, are you actually listening to your wife? Are you actually honoring her? Like,
yeah.
What are you doing? So, a public apology, Andrea, for all the challenges I've created over the last few years for you, but thank you for sticking with me and loving me. And
yeah.
yep, that's how it goes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I need my wife to do that. I'm just kidding.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Because we're both pretty awesome. So I'll just
yeah. Oh, it's so good.
It was funny the other day. Jess was sitting on the couch and I was sitting down with one of the guys and I was saying some male chauvinist kind of stuff and I couldn't see her. I could feel her eyes burning over here, and then it made me do it more.
Oh my!
But it's all in good fun. It's funny.
Yeah.
And it's funny when you can be lighthearted about the differences.
Yep.
And not so those things can separate and cause a division.
Right.
Because we were meant to be different. We're all unique, and our uniqueness creates a beautiful picture of what it means to do this life together. You know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a big deal also to have couples around us, right? That are working on the stuff, right?
Yes.
That are being vulnerable and saying, hey, we got our issues. I mean, Scott and Katie Strong, it was hilarious. We were finishing up Young Living Convention, and Andre and I got into an argument in the airport at lunch. And the next people that we ran into were Scott and Katie waiting at the gate. And I was like, guys, we need you to mediate us.
Yeah.
So it was awesome. And so they got to mediate us, and it was just fantastic. I mean, that's the importance again of other married couples that are walking the journey, right? And we talk about our triggers, because everybody has triggers, right? Like you say this, you say that, then it triggers me, and then I do this, whatever. So it's like, we gotta.
You know what triggers me?
What's that?
When I wake up in the morning.
Is that right? That's awesome.
People used to talk about their triggers and all this stuff, and I'm like, my trigger's when I wake up in the morning. I'm like, that's my trigger.
That's hilarious.
That's what it is. I have a whole council of my thoughts ready to they were up before I was, and they're ready to talk about the day.
That's hilarious.
And I'm like, oh man. And so I have to put them in check, you know what I mean, and say, okay, we need to set this to the side.
That's hilarious. What's your morning routine? What do you do to wake up, get your
since I started my own business, right? I've been terrible about it, but I go to sleep late and I wake up late.
Okay.
So I used to work at UPS for 12 years, and I did a night shift, and so I was always up at night and sleeping during the day.
Got it.
And then I worked 2 jobs, and one of them was an overnight. So like my body, it's kind of weird. I need to change it, but I haven't. I haven't been intentional about it. But when I wake up, I'll wake up, get ready, either go to the gym and then shower, go to work. And then I'm at my first job by like 10, 11 o'clock. So that's when I start, my actual work day.
Yeah.
And then, and of course the days I do wake up early are Saturday mornings for the Saturday morning men's group that I'm a part of every Saturday at Ironman. I've missed a couple Saturdays, but we do that, and then we do an early morning breakfast on one Saturday out of the month. And but other than that, that's how I wake up. I wake up and it's almost like I'm getting into this routine of checking my. I know this is not something that's good, but I check my social media. I'm checking my progress, and I'm trying to stay consistent with my growth, online.
Yeah.
And so that's almost like the first thing I do when I wake up. I'm like, oh, how many views did I get?
Yeah. Hey, that's real. That's how you track how you are doing, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's been, what's your routine when you?
First thing I do is drink a lot of water. I just chug a bunch of water. And then read a little scripture. I have a Church of the Highlands, churchofhighlands.com. I just go on there and just read a little bit of scripture to start. And then a little prayer time. Very little prayer usually, because I usually pray when I'm driving. And then it's off to the gym on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, or Tuesdays. And Tuesdays I run, do a speed workout. Thursdays I go for a walk with a buddy. Early, like 5:15. And then Saturdays I run again. And then Sundays I just rest. But yeah, that's the start of my day. Yeah, takes off from there.
And then as far as like entrepreneurship, what are you guys doing right now to grow your business, to stay on track, and to keep that cash flow coming?
Yeah, good question. So in the financial services world, for me personally, the best thing that we can do is service our clients really well. So we do account reviews every 2 years. So we just sit down with people and just say, hey, here's where things are at. This is what, projected what income it'll create for you in retirement. And then just ask them about goals. What are your current goals? What are things that you're working towards? Often people don't have goals. Just quite often people don't have goals. So I'll propose goals to them. And then, so that's big financial services thing is like when you take good care of your current clients, then referrals come naturally, right? And I mail birthday postcards to people. Those are the things that I focus in on, and that usually grows the business over time. And then in the Young Living world, you got to come and join us the other night. That was cool. Just working on getting back in person because, what 2020 did to our community, right, which was very in-person driven. We've done online in the last few years, which is cool. But for me, like nothing quite beats in person. That's me. And it's not that I'm opposed to online because we do things there too. But just getting people back in person and just getting people excited again about what it is that we do, So
absolutely,
for me, those are the two big ways that we're working on it. And then, being daily devoted to being faithful with the little things is what I like to say is faithful with the little things when it comes to our finances, which is just, hey, every single dollar that we're blessed with, that we handle that well, right? That we don't keep it all for ourselves. We give some of it, right? We save and invest and we spend, right?
Absolutely.
And we do those all the time. And I just want to say that's one more financial tip is always do those three things. Always give, always save, always spend, and you will live a pretty fantastic life.
Man, there we go.
In that way.
Well, thank you, Andy, for coming today and sharing all this stuff. I appreciate you coming and talking with the audience. And guys, if you don't know where to start, one thing that before we end this broadcast, one of the things that I was talking to my wife about, and we saw one of these financial gurus talking about this, but if you want to make an extra $100,000 for the year, think about 20 things that you can do to accomplish that goal. So my wife and I, thankfully we're making $100,000, but it seems like we're not because of all the expenses and things that we got with business and whatnot. But we want to make an extra $100,000. So what do? We're going to sit down together and write a plan and then put down 20 ideas of what can help us with an additional $10,000 a month. And then don't forget to check out the links, guys, in the description below. Also, you can start saving your change by downloading the Acorns app. It's an amazing app. It's going to be in the description below, but you hook it up to your account, and every time you swipe, it saves your change and it invests your money with interest. It's amazing. I've had my account for over 2 years, and I've saved over $3,000 just by swiping my card on my daily uses, and it grows with interest. I've saved about $700-800 of interest on top of what I've saved. So it's a pretty neat place to start and start thinking about these things for your financial future. So like I said, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification button. And until next time, we love you. God loves you, and God bless.